We're having an impressive amount of content these days, movies, TV shows, and it makes a lot of work for everyone. Do you feel that the hours to compose your scores are shortened, and how much does it really affect the artistic side on his work?
It is a reality of this business that the deadlines are tight. And it is also a reality of this business that making a score is a lot of work and it takes a lot of hours. That is just an occupational hazard. You know, something I personally appreciate it because I love that I'm forced to move on to different ideas. I'm forced to work quickly. I think if I didn't have that pressure to work quickly, I might get stuck on an idea. I might get stuck with perfectionism. You know,
Yeah.
I think there's a certain point where you're like, you know what, this sounds great. It's good enough. Could I spend another 2 weeks on it and make it 2% better? Maybe, but we don't care about that right now because I have this, and this to do. And I think the artistry is baked in to that process. I think that there is just as much amazing inspiration, magic, and musical artistry that can come from having to go with your first or second idea as opposed to your 8th or 10th idea. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Right.
yes, thanks.
So, Christophe, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so
call me
Hawkeye.
Chris.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for Hawkeye, there's two very different vibes. There's
Yeah.
action and there's Christmas.
Yeah.
When you get that kind of a challenge, how do you kind of work between those two very different vibes with the music?
Yeah, it can be very challenging, and in fact, the first vibe that we all explored and then left behind was film noir, which was a whole different thing, and then it sort of morphed into this Christmas thing. I think that when it really works best in Hawkeye is we have two big action set pieces that are based on actual classic Christmas melodies. I believe one is Carol of the Bells and the other one is Night of the Shingle Fairy. And it was great to be able to take those actual famous Christmas tunes but arrange and orchestrate them like an action sequence. So you have the literal blending of those two vibes right there in those two sequences. But there's more nuanced versions of it too, where there's often room, even in the context of a big action set piece, for there to be a little bit of space, and there's an opportunity there to take that space and fill it with even just a little bit of a bell or a little sprinkle of fairy dust, musically, to bring it back to the Christmas part. And I have a lot of experience with Christmas projects. Both Frozen movies are Christmassy, and I also did Christmas Chronicles Parts 1 and 2 with Kurt Russell on Netflix. So it seems to keep coming back to me. So I know my Christmas tricks. Yeah.
Thank you.
How does the score evolve as the characters grow?
That's a great question. It's one of the biggest challenges of working on a franchise like that. Any sequel, really. And this challenge applies to, I would say, every department in a movie. Starting with the writers, how much do you keep from your first movie? You got a built-in audience, assuming that the first movie is successful, which there probably wouldn't be a sequel if it wasn't, right? So you don't want to make a totally different movie with the same character. You got to find that balance between something that's new and something that's familiar. And the same goes with the music. I remember in the Hangover trilogy, we established a sound for the first movie. The second movie went to a bit of a different location, but it was still kind of the same sound, a little bit of a shift. And then the third movie, we threw that all out and did something totally new. And that seems to be a pattern in trilogies. I don't want to say too much about Ant-Man 3, but I know that on the first Ant-Man, we really explored heist sounds, heist, sort of classic, iconic heist tropes in music, and in particular a musical device called odd meters, which is where you take, most Western music is 4 beats to a bar, 3 beats to a bar. Odd meters, you're looking at 5 or 7. That was a big thing that I loved exploring in the first Ant-Man, and when we did Ant-Man and the Wasp, we did the same thing, but a little bit differently. For this one, which I've just started working on, we're exploring some pretty new terrain musically that I'm really excited about. We're sort of done with the odd meter thing now, and I'm looking at other ways of stretching the sound a little bit.
You are working on Amazon Marvel series WandaVision and Hawkeye, and also some Marvel movies. What can you tell us about your collaboration with Marvel Studios?
What can I tell you about?
About your collaboration with Marvel Studios?
It's my honestly, one of my favorite relationships in my entire career has been with Marvel. I love working with them. They make incredible movies and TV shows. They, from the top down, from Kevin Feige on down, they respect music. They understand what music can do. They're fans of movie music, and there's a level of trust there that allows me, I think, to really flourish as a composer and as an artist. I will also say, and this is no secret, that their post-production process is very chaotic. I sometimes want to go to them and be like, hey guys, this process would be so much smoother if we could just, get these visual effects done here, and if we could just be like, what am I going to tell them, how to make their movies? I mean, look at their track record. They're doing just fine without my advice. So one thing I learned very early on in my relationship with Marvel is to adapt to the way that they like to work, and it's now second nature to me to work with them, and I hope I get to do it for a long while longer. Yeah.
Chris, what do you enjoy most about composing music for superheroes? What is the difference with other kind of movies or genres?
It's interesting. I think there are so many different types of superhero movies.
Yes.
Just as there are so many different types of movies, it's really hard to answer that. I will say there is for a lot of superhero movies, there is expectation of a more traditional symphonic sound, right? Like a big theme, with a capital T.
John Williams thing.
Yeah. And I'm working on. I just finished working on. We'll be recording very soon the new Shazam movie that's coming out at the end of the year, and the nature of that film, the kind of story that it is, and the taste of the director and the studio has led me to do a totally traditional acoustic symphonic score, and those are just fun. I mean, they're fun to do because it sounds big, it's exciting. It's as a young film composer, you dream of being able to write music like that and hear it performed by an amazing orchestra in a recording studio. But even a movie like Shazam, especially a movie like Shazam, has moments of real heart and real drama too. And that's when I can really sink my teeth into the emotion of it and not just the razzle-dazzle. And those are the most satisfying moments. And honestly, the way superhero movies are being made today, they're so good, they're so well written, so well acted, that it's incredibly satisfying to me.
Great.
So at Disneyland, there's Pim's Test Kitchen, and I think they play some of your music there.
Pim's Test Kitchen.
Yeah. Did you ever anticipate any of your music playing at a
That's
Disney
pretty
park?
fun. No, I'm thinking of Avengers Campus, where they play a little bit of Ant-Man. I remember I brought my fiance there 6 months ago, and it was great to be able to go there and hear the theme. It made me feel, famous, which is nice. It's like Comic-Con makes me feel famous. I also there's a moment on the Universal Studios tram ride where they play a little bit of my music as they show a clip from a scene from a movie that I worked on. And I remember taking my daughter 10, 12 years ago and you're like, hey, that's your dad's music. So yeah, it's one of the great pleasures of being in this business is when you write music that becomes part of the culture, and then you get to hear it in places you least expect.